Virgin thought it would be one night only, until the millionaire whispered, "Be mine forever." The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor with a sound that could have been mistaken for applause. Rebecca Hartley froze, her camera still raised to her eye, as 300 pairs of eyes turned toward her in the glittering ballroom of the Grandshire Hotel, the annual Westbrook Charity Gala, where Manhattan's wealthiest gathered to write checks and pretend they cared about affordable housing, had just gone silent. "I am so sorry," Rebecca stammered, lowering her camera and staring at the champagne-soaked server whose tray she'd just backed into. "I didn't see you there. I was trying to get the angle with the chandeliers and—" "It's fine," the server hissed, though her expression suggested it was very much not fine. "Just move, please." Rebecca stepped aside quickly, her face burning. This was exactly why she preferred corporate photography sessions in controlled studios rather than event photography. Too many moving parts. Too many ways to accidentally destroy someone's evening. "Quite the entrance," a deep voice said beside her. Rebecca turned, and immediately wished she hadn't. The man standing there was the kind of handsome that should come with a warning label. Tall, dark-haired, with sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of expensive whiskey. His tuxedo fit him like it had been engineered specifically for his frame. "I'm working," she said defensively, holding up her camera like a shield. Rebecca Hartley. Photography. I was hired to document the event, not destroy it. His lips twitched. Rebecca Hartley Photography? The one that did that viral campaign for Meridian Coffee last month? She blinked. "You know my work? Every morning is a fresh start," he quoted, his eyes crinkling slightly. The campaign with the sunrise shots through coffee steam, it was everywhere. My marketing team wouldn't stop talking about it. Despite herself, Rebecca felt a flicker of pride. That campaign had been her breakthrough, the one that had finally put her studio on the map after 3 years of hustling for every corporate headshot and wedding gig she could find. "Well, tonight, I'm just the photographer who assaulted a serving staff with her complete lack of spatial awareness," Rebecca said. "So, maintaining my professional reputation beautifully." He laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to surprise him as much as it surprised her. "I'm sure you'll recover, though you might want to watch where you're stepping. These events are full of hazards." Clearly. Rebecca adjusted her camera settings, trying to look professional and not at all flustered by the way he was looking at her. "Speaking of which, I should get back to work. My client gets cranky when I don't deliver at least 200 usable shots." "Who's your client?" "The Westbrook Foundation. Though I haven't actually met Mr. Westbrook yet. I've been dealing with his assistant, who has very strong opinions about lighting and composition." Rebecca gestured vaguely toward the crowd. "He's supposed to be here somewhere, probably wearing something expensive and looking philanthropic." The man's expression shifted into something she couldn't quite read. Amusement? Surprise? Both? "What?" she asked. "Nothing. It's just," he extended his hand. "Daniel Westbrook. And yes, I do have strong opinions about lighting, though usually I let Caroline handle those conversations." Rebecca's stomach dropped somewhere around her knees. Oh no. "Oh no? She shook his hand, because leaving him hanging seemed even worse than the current situation. "I basically just implied you look like every other rich guy here and that you're probably pretentious about photography." "I am pretentious about photography," Daniel said easily. "I spent 6 months in Thailand after college, doing nothing but taking pictures of temples and beaches and pretending I was going to be the next Steve McCurry." "What happened?" "Well, realized I was better at funding great photography than creating it." He gestured toward her camera. "Which is why I was so insistent on hiring you specifically for tonight. Your work is exceptional." Rebecca felt her cheeks warm, and it had nothing to do with the ballroom's temperature. "Thank you. I appreciate that. Though I have to ask, if you knew you were shooting the Westbrook Gala, why didn't you research what the host looks like?" "I did," Rebecca admitted. "But all the photos online are from 10 years ago when you had that terrible haircut and looked like you were 12. Daniel's hand flew to his hair self-consciously. It wasn't that terrible. It was very terrible. Very early 2010 seconds investment banker trying to look edgy. I was 23 and thought I knew everything. And now? Now I'm 33 and know slightly more than everything, he said with a completely straight face. Rebecca laughed before she could stop herself. Wow. Humility looks good on you. I've been told I wear it well. His eyes were doing something dangerous, sparkling with humor, and something else she couldn't quite name. So, Rebecca Hartley of Rebecca Hartley Photography, since you've already destroyed part of my event and insulted my decade-old haircut, would you like to properly document this gala? I can play tour guide if you need good shots. Don't you have, I don't know, mayors' wives to schmooze? Charity donations to collect? I do, but they'll still be here in 20 minutes. And you look like you could use someone to make sure you don't back into any more servers. I'm not usually this clumsy, Rebecca protested. I believe you. You're an artist. Artists are allowed to be lost in their vision occasionally. Is that your way of calling me distracted? It's my way of saying your focus on getting the perfect shot is admirable, even if it comes with some collateral damage. Rebecca studied him for a moment. He was standing there in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, looking at her like she was the most interesting person in the room. And absolutely nothing about this made sense. She'd been to dozens of these events, always behind the camera, always invisible. The wealthy didn't notice photographers unless something went wrong. Why are you being nice to me? She asked suddenly. Daniel looked genuinely confused. Why wouldn't I be? Because I'm working. Because you're the host. Because this is a transactional evening, and I'm here to provide a service, not chat with the guy writing the checks. Maybe I'm tired of transactional evenings, he said quietly. Maybe I'd rather talk to someone who creates beautiful things than someone who wants to network their way into my uncle's portfolio. There was something raw in his voice that made Rebecca's professional defenses crack slightly. Okay, she said. You can be my tour guide. But if anyone important needs you, I'm pushing you toward them immediately. I need this gig to go well. Deal. He offered his arm like they were in some old movie. Shall we? Rebecca hesitated, then looped her free hand through his arm, her camera held carefully in the other. Lead the way, Mr. Westbrook. Daniel, he corrected. Mr. Westbrook is my uncle, and he's insufferable. Is he here tonight? God, no. He stopped coming to these events years ago. Said they were full of performative wealth, and people who confuse charity with tax deductions. Rebecca snorted. I think I'd like your uncle. Everyone thinks they'd like my uncle until they meet him. Daniel steered her toward the main stage, where the lighting was particularly dramatic. He's brilliant and generous, and has absolutely no filter. Last family dinner, he told my cousin her boyfriend looked like a mediocre Bond villain. Was he wrong? Disturbingly accurate, actually. They moved through the ballroom together, and Rebecca found herself relaxing despite the absurdity of the situation. Daniel pointed out good photo opportunities, the mayor's wife laughing with the symphony conductor, the way the light caught the ice sculptures, a group of donors clearly pretending to care about a presentation on affordable housing initiatives. Get that one, Daniel murmured, nodding toward an elderly couple dancing slowly in the corner, completely absorbed in each other. That's the Carsons, married 62 years. They met at a gala just like this one. Rebecca raised her camera and captured the moment the way Mr. Carson looked at his wife like she was still 25. The gentle smile on Mrs. Carson's face. Beautiful, Daniel said softly. And when Rebecca lowered the camera, she realized he was looking at her, not the viewfinder. I should. Rebecca cleared her throat. I should get some shots of the main hall. Wide angles. Caroline was very specific about wanting architectural shots. Caroline is always specific, Daniel agreed, but he didn't move away. Rebecca? Yes? Would you have dinner with me after this event is over? She stared at him. What? Dinner. You. Me. Food. Possibly conversation about something other than photography and galas. Why? Because I haven't had a genuine conversation with someone in months. Because you backed into a server and insulted my haircut within 5 minutes of meeting me. Because, he paused. Because I'd like to. Rebecca's professional instincts screamed that this was a terrible idea. Don't mix business with pleasure. Don't date clients. Don't let handsome millionaires distract you from building your career. But there was something about the way he was looking at her, hopeful and uncertain and surprisingly vulnerable, that made her say, Okay, one dinner. But I'm buying my own meal. I invited you. I own a successful photography business, Daniel. I can afford my own dinner. His smile widened into something that made her stomach flip. I never doubted it. Good. Rebecca raised her camera again, needing something to do with her hands. Now go be philanthropic or whatever it is you do. I have 200 shots to deliver, and only about 50 of them can be of you smiling like you just won something. Did I win something? That depends entirely on whether you can recommend a good restaurant, Rebecca said, then walked away before she could see his reaction. Behind her, she heard him laugh, warm and genuine, and just a little bit delighted. If you're still here, watching, brace up, because the most interesting parts of our story is just getting started. Before we continue, please do well to like and subscribe. It means a lot to our channel's growth. Now you've done that, let's dive back in. The next morning, Rebecca sat in her studio apartment/office in Brooklyn, staring at the 700 photos from the Westbrook Gala spread across her 3 monitors. She'd been culling through them for 2 hours, and she kept getting distracted by the same thing. Daniel Westbrook's face appeared in at least 60 of them. Not because she'd been deliberately photographing him, absolutely not, but because he had this annoying habit of showing up in the background of other shots. Here he was, laughing with the symphony conductor. There he was, listening intently to an elderly donor. And in this one, he was looking directly at the camera, with an expression that made her heart do something complicated. "Stop it," she muttered to herself, flagging the photo for deletion, then immediately unflagging it, then flagging it again. Her phone buzzed. A text from Tessa, her best friend and fellow business owner who ran a boutique marketing agency 3 floors down. "Tessa, coffee in 10? I can see you haven't left your cave yet." Rebecca glanced at the window. Tessa's office had a direct sightline to Rebecca's apartment, which was both convenient and invasive. "Rebecca, how do you know I haven't left?" "Tessa, your lights have been on since 6 a.m. and I can literally see you hunched over your computer like a photography goblin. Coffee. Now." 10 minutes later, Rebecca was settled into their usual corner table at Bloom and Brew, the coffee shop that had somehow become their unofficial office space. Tessa arrived in a whirlwind of red lipstick and perfectly styled braids, carrying a tablet and looking far too put together for 9 a.m. "You look terrible," Tessa announced, sliding into the seat across from her. "Good morning to you too. When did you get home from the gala?" "Around midnight. Then I uploaded all the photos and started editing." Tessa's eyes narrowed. "You were supposed to do a quick backup and go to sleep." "That was the plan. I couldn't sleep." Rebecca wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. "My brain wouldn't shut off." "Was your brain thinking about work, or was it thinking about a certain millionaire event host who, according to my friend who catered last night, couldn't take his eyes off you all evening?" Rebecca's cheeks warmed. "Your friend is exaggerating. So something did happen." "Nothing happened. We talked. I took photos. He asked me to dinner." Tessa's coffee mug hit the table with a thunk. "I'm sorry, what?" "It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal? Rebecca Christina Hartley, a millionaire, asked you to dinner and you're treating this like it's a normal Tuesday?" "It kind of is a normal Tuesday." Rebecca pulled out her phone and showed Tessa her calendar. "Look, today I have a corporate headshot session at 11. A consultation call about a wedding at 2, editing until 6. Then a business networking event at 7 that I absolutely cannot skip because I need to land that hotel contract." "You're impossible. When is this dinner?" "Tomorrow night." "Maybe. He's supposed to text me details." "And you said yes?" "I said yes." Tessa leaned back, studying her. "You never say yes." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means in the 3 years I've known you, you've turned down at least a dozen guys because you were too busy building the business or not looking for anything serious, or my personal favorite." Relationships are a distraction from my goals. Rebecca shifted uncomfortably. Those were all true. I know they were. That's my point. Tessa's expression softened. You've been working yourself half to death since you started this business. Which is great, you're incredibly successful. But when's the last time you did something just because you wanted to? Not because it was networking or good for business or building your brand. I do things I want to do. Name one. Rebecca opened her mouth, closed it. I enjoy my work. That's not the same thing. Tessa reached across and squeezed her hand. Look, I'm not saying quit your job and run away with the millionaire. I'm saying maybe it's okay to have one dinner with a guy who seems genuinely interested in you. Not Rebecca Hartley photography. You. I don't know how to separate those things anymore, Rebecca admitted quietly. My business is me. Everything I've built, it's all I have. That's not true. You have friends. You have your ridiculous collection of vintage cameras that you never use. You have that salsa dancing class you went to exactly once and swore you'd go back to. That class was a disaster because you tried to schedule it between two shoots and showed up 40 minutes late. Tessa smiled gently. Becca, you're allowed to have a life outside of work. You're allowed to be interested in someone. I barely know him. So get to know him. Have dinner. Talk. Be a normal human woman who goes on dates occasionally. Rebecca sighed. When did you become so wise? I've always been wise. You've just been too busy being a workaholic to notice. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the morning rush of customers flow through the coffee shop. Rebecca's mind drifted back to the gala, to the way Daniel had looked at her photographs with genuine interest, how he'd made her laugh despite her initial mortification. He knew my work, she said suddenly. The Meridian Coffee campaign. He recognized it. Tessa's eyebrows rose. Really? Said his marketing team wouldn't stop talking about it. Rebecca traced the rim of her mug. It was nice. Having someone see the work, not just the potential networking opportunity. So he's handsome, successful, appreciates your art, and makes you laugh. Terrible combination. You should definitely cancel. Shut up. I'm serious. Those are clearly red flags for a healthy, functional relationship. Much better to date that guy from the networking event who spent an hour explaining blockchain to you. Rebecca threw a sugar packet at her. That was one time and I'm still traumatized. Exactly my point. Go to dinner with a hot millionaire who actually seems like a decent human. Tessa stood, gathering her things. And for the love of God, wear something that isn't work clothes. You own exactly one dress that hasn't been in the back of a photography shoot. I have plenty of dresses. You have plenty of black clothing that you can move in while carrying equipment. That's not the same as a dress. After Tessa left, Rebecca returned to her apartment and forced herself to focus on actual work. The corporate headshot session went smoothly, a tech startup that needed professional photos for their website. The consultation call was with a bride who had very specific ideas about candid, but also perfectly posed wedding photography, which was essentially asking for the impossible. But Rebecca smiled and took notes and promised to send over a proposal. By 6 p.m., her eyes were burning from staring at screens, and her phone still hadn't buzzed with a text from Daniel. He probably forgot, she told herself, attacking her photo editing with renewed focus. Or he came to his senses. Or it was just a polite thing rich people say at events and don't actually mean. But just then, as she thought, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Daniel. From the gala. In case you've met multiple Daniels in the past 24 hours and needed clarification. Rebecca smiled despite herself. Rebecca. Just the one Daniel. Unless you count my neighbor's very loud parrot. Daniel. How loud are we talking? Rebecca. He knows the entire Phantom of the Opera soundtrack, including the backup vocals. Daniel. That's either impressive or horrifying. Both. Definitely both. There was a pause, then 3 dots appeared indicating he was typing. Daniel. So, about tomorrow night. I know a place in the West Village, small Italian restaurant, family-owned, incredible pasta, Very ungala-like. Would 7 work? Rebecca looked at her calendar. She had editing scheduled until 8, but she could move things around. She'd been moving things around for work for 3 years. Maybe Tessa was right. Maybe she could move things around for herself occasionally. Rebecca, 7 works. Send me the address? Daniel. Done. And Rebecca? Rebecca. Yes? Daniel. I'm looking forward to it. Rebecca stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. She could keep this light, professional, casual, or she could be honest. Rebecca. Me too. She set down her phone and turned back to her computer, but the smile on her face refused to fade. Her business was still her priority that hadn't changed. But maybe, just maybe, there was room for something else too. Even if that something else made her stomach flip in ways that had nothing to do with landing her next big client. Her phone buzzed one more time. A text from Tessa. I can see you smiling from here. You absolute disaster. Wear the dress. Rebecca laughed and threw a pillow in the general direction of her window. Tomorrow night. Italian restaurant. A date with someone who saw her work and appreciated it, who made her laugh, who asked questions and actually listened to the answers. Just one dinner, she told herself firmly, then back to normal. But even as she said it, she wasn't entirely sure she believed it. Rebecca changed outfits 4 times before settling on an emerald green wrap dress that Tessa had forced her to buy 6 months ago for emergencies. Apparently, dinner with a millionaire qualified as an emergency. She arrived at Gino's Trattoria at 6:58 p.m., deliberately 2 minutes early because showing up exactly on time felt too calculated. The restaurant was tucked between a bookstore and a vintage record shop, with ivy climbing the brick exterior and warm lights spilling from the windows. Nothing about it screamed millionaire dining spot, which somehow made her even more nervous. Daniel was already there, standing outside in dark jeans and a navy sweater that made his eyes look impossibly warm. He ditched the tuxedo for something that looked effortlessly expensive but casual, the kind of outfit that probably cost a fortune, but was designed to look like he'd just grabbed whatever was closest. You found it, he said, smiling in a way that made her forget her carefully rehearsed opening line about traffic. Your directions were good, Rebecca managed. Though I did get briefly distracted by the bookstore next door. They have a first edition Diane Arbus collection in the window. I know. I've been trying to work up the courage to buy it for 3 months. Why do you need courage? Just buy it. Because once I buy it, I won't have an excuse to walk past and look at it anymore. He opened the restaurant door for her. Sometimes the wanting is better than the having. Rebecca filed that observation away as they stepped inside. The restaurant was small, maybe 15 tables with exposed brick walls covered in black and white photographs of Italy. A woman who could only be Gino's wife or mother descended on them immediately with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for long-lost family members. Danny, she exclaimed, kissing both his cheeks. Finally, you bring a girl, I tell Gino. I say, that boy is too handsome to eat alone so much. Maria, this is Rebecca. Daniel's ears had turned slightly pink. Rebecca, this is Maria. She's been trying to set me up with her daughter for 2 years. Her daughter is too good for you, Maria said cheerfully, then turned to Rebecca. But you have good eyes. Artist eyes. Are you an artist? Photographer, Rebecca said, charmed despite herself. Ah, perfect. He needs someone who sees things. Maria winked at Daniel. Your usual table? Please. They were led to a corner table by the window, tucked away from the other diners but with a perfect view of the street. Someone had placed a small vase with fresh daisies in the center. You have a usual table? Rebecca asked as they sat down. I live 3 blocks away. This place is my kitchen most nights. He looked almost embarrassed. I can't cook to save my life, and Maria refuses to let me eat takeout more than twice a week. She sounds like Tessa, my best friend. She has very strong opinions about my life choices. Does she approve of this dinner? She threatened to break into my apartment and pick my outfit if I didn't text her proof that I was wearing the dress. Daniel's eyes flickered over her dress in a way that made her skin warm. It's a good dress. It's Tessa's dress. She says I dress like I'm about to climb a mountain or crawl through mud to get the perfect shot. Do you? Climb mountains and crawl through mud? When necessary. Rebecca accepted the wine list from a passing waiter but didn't open it. Last month I spent 4 hours in a tree for a sunrise shoot. The month before that, I waded into the Hudson River up to my waist for a reflection shot. Did you get the shot? Always. That's dedication. That's obsession, Rebecca corrected. There's a difference. Is there? She considered this. Dedication sounds healthier. Obsession is probably more accurate. The waiter returned, and Daniel ordered for both of them, in what sounded like fluent Italian, checking with Rebecca first to make sure she didn't have any food restrictions. She didn't, and frankly was too distracted by the way he pronounced pappardelle to care what she was eating. So, Daniel said once the waiter left, tell me about this obsession of yours. When did it start? Rebecca took a sip of water, buying time. She didn't usually talk about this. The origin story felt too personal, too revealing, but something about the way he was looking at her, genuinely curious and patient, made her want to share. I was 16, she said. My dad gave me his old Nikon for my birthday. Said he'd used it to photograph my mom when they first started dating. And now it was my turn to find my own way of seeing the world. That's beautiful. It was. Especially since he died 3 months later. Rebecca said it matter-of-factly, the way she'd learned to over the years. Heart attack. Completely unexpected. Daniel's expression shifted to something gentle and sad. Rebecca. It was a long time ago. She traced the rim of her wine glass. But that camera became everything. I photographed anything and everything: flowers, buildings, random people on the subway. It was like, as long as I was looking through the viewfinder, I could make sense of things. I could control the frame, the light, the composition. Real life was chaos, but a photograph? A photograph I could perfect. Is that why you started your business? That and crippling student loans from NYU. Rebecca smiled. I studied photography and business. Double major because my mom insisted I needed something practical to fall back on. Turns out the business degree was more useful than I expected. Running a creative business is harder than people think, Daniel said. I see it all the time with the artists and nonprofits we fund. The talent is there, but the infrastructure is a nightmare, Rebecca finished. Accounting, marketing, client management, equipment maintenance, insurance. Some days I spend more time on spreadsheets than I do actually taking photos. Do you ever regret it? Going out on your own? Every day. Rebecca grinned. And then I remember what it was like working for other people, shooting exactly what they wanted. On their timeline. With their vision. At least now when I'm miserable, it's my own misery. Daniel laughed. That genuine sound that made her stomach flip. That's a very particular kind of optimism. It's realism disguised as optimism. Much healthier. Their food arrived: pasta that looked like it had been crafted by someone who viewed cooking as an art form. Rebecca took a bite and actually moaned. Okay, I understand why you eat here constantly, she said. This is ridiculous. Wait until you try the tiramisu. Maria makes it fresh every morning. They ate and talked, the conversation flowing easily from photography to business, to Daniel's confession that he'd actually wanted to be a photojournalist before his uncle had convinced him that he could do more good funding journalism than creating it. Do you regret that choice? Rebecca asked. Daniel was quiet for a moment, turning his wine glass in his hands. Sometimes, but then I see what our foundation can do, the programs we fund, the artists we support, the communities we help. It's a different kind of creating, I guess. Building infrastructure instead of images. That's very diplomatic. You're calling me a politician? I'm calling you someone who's good at making the best of a situation that maybe wasn't his first choice. He looked at her sharply, and Rebecca worried she'd overstepped. But then he smiled, a smaller, more vulnerable expression than before. "You're very direct," he said. "Occupational hazard. Photographers notice things. What else have you noticed? That you've checked your phone 3 times during dinner but haven't actually looked at it once. That you know everyone in this restaurant by name. That you're left-handed but wear your watch on your left wrist anyway. That you—" Rebecca's phone exploded with buzzing. Not a single call, but a cascade of notifications that made the table vibrate. "Sorry," she muttered, reaching for it. "I'll silence it." But the name on the screen made her freeze. Caroline Pierce, FPRSI, Westbrook Foundation, followed by "Emergency. Call immediately." Then another text. "Gala photos leaked to press. Need damage control now." And another. "Where are you? This is urgent." Rebecca's blood ran cold. She looked up at Daniel, whose expression had shifted from relaxed to concerned. "What's wrong?" he asked. "The photos from the gala." Rebecca's hands were shaking as she opened her email. Her inbox was flooded with messages, all with subject lines like "unauthorized use" and "copyright violation" and "legal action." What about them? Rebecca found the email from Caroline and opened it, her stomach sinking with every word. "Rebecca, someone has leaked preliminary photos from the gala to the New York Tribune and 3 social media gossip accounts. The images appear to be unedited work-in-progress shots from your cloud backup. They include several unflattering photos of donors, as well as multiple shots of Daniel that suggest a personal relationship rather than professional documentation. The Foundation's legal team is exploring options, but we need you to issue a statement immediately and provide documentation of your security protocols. This breach of confidentiality is exactly what our contract was designed to prevent. Call me as soon as you receive this. Caroline." Rebecca felt like she might throw up. She looked at Daniel, who was reading something on his own phone, his jaw tight. "Did you see this?" he asked, turning his screen toward her. It was a tabloid website, with the headline, "Millionaire Philanthropist's Secret Romance. Exclusive gala photos reveal Daniel Westbrook's mystery woman." Below it were 3 photos. One of Daniel helping her navigate the ballroom, her hand on his arm. Another of him looking at her while she photographed the dancing couple, his expression unmistakably tender. And a third, the one that made her heart stop, of them laughing together. Close enough that it looked intimate. "I didn't release these," Rebecca said immediately. "Daniel, I swear. These must have been pulled from my backup drive, but I have security protocols. I don't understand how I believe you." His voice was calm, but his knuckles were white around his phone. "But this is going to be a problem." "I know. I'll fix it. I'll issue a statement. It's not just about the photos." Daniel set down his phone and looked at her directly. "My ex-girlfriend, Vanessa, is launching a competing foundation next month. She's been looking for any opportunity to make me look unprofessional or distracted. These photos, us together like this, it's going to feed into her narrative that I'm not serious about the work." "We're not together," Rebecca said. "This is our first dinner. I know that. But the optics." He ran a hand through his hair. "And there's something else. The foundation is about to announce a major partnership with the city for affordable housing initiatives. If this becomes a scandal about me dating contractors or mixing business with personal relationships, I understand." Rebecca stood up, grabbing her bag. "I'll handle this. I'll make it clear that these were stolen, that we have no personal relationship, that—" "Rebecca, wait." But she was already moving toward the door, her chest tight with panic and humiliation. Behind her, she could hear Daniel calling her name, but she couldn't stop, couldn't turn around and see the disappointment in his eyes. Outside, the cool November air hit her face like a slap. Her phone was still buzzing with messages: Tessa, Caroline, numbers she didn't recognize. The perfect evening had shattered into a million pieces, and all she could think about was how she'd let her guard down. How she'd allowed herself one dinner, one moment of not being completely focused on work, and this was what happened. Professional reputation destroyed. Client relationship ruined. Whatever might have been developing with Daniel over before it started. Her phone rang. Daniel. Rebecca stared at his name on the screen, then declined the call. She had a crisis to manage, a statement to write, and a business to save. Everything else would have to wait. Rebecca didn't sleep that night. She spent 4 hours on the phone with her lawyer, a copyright attorney she'd met at a networking event and had hoped never to actually need. They drafted a statement, filed a DMCA takedown notice, and started the process of tracking down how her backup drive had been accessed. By 3 a.m., she had her answer. A phishing email she'd clicked 3 days ago, disguised as a software update for her cloud storage service. Amateur mistake. The kind of thing she warned other photographers about in the online forums she frequented. "You're not the first, and won't be the last," her lawyer, Janet, said over the phone. "These scams are sophisticated. That doesn't make me feel better," Rebecca responded. "Well, it should, because it means this wasn't your fault, it was a criminal act. We can prove that." But proving it didn't change the immediate damage. By morning, the photos had been picked up by 6 more gossip sites, each with increasingly creative headlines. Philanthropist's photographer romance. Picture perfect love? Westbrook Foundation's latest charity case? That last one made Rebecca want to throw her laptop across the room. Tessa showed up at 7 a.m. with coffee and bagels, using the emergency key Rebecca had given her for situations exactly like this. "You look like death," Tessa announced, setting the coffee on Rebecca's desk. "Thanks, very helpful. Have you talked to him?" Rebecca didn't need to ask who him was. "He's called 4 times and texted 7. I haven't responded." "Becca, I can't, Tessa. Every time I think about facing him, about explaining this disaster." She gestured at her computer screen, currently displaying an entertainment blog's analysis of their body language in the leaked photos. "I just want to disappear. Running away isn't going to fix this. I'm not running away. I'm strategically avoiding until I have a plan." That's literally the definition of running away. Tessa sat on the edge of Rebecca's desk. "What did Caroline say?" "That the Foundation's legal team is evaluating their options, which is corporate speak for, we're deciding whether to sue you." "They won't sue you. You were the victim here. I was also the one who got phished, the one whose security wasn't tight enough, the one who," Rebecca's voice cracked, "the one who let this happen." Tessa pulled her into a hug. "This isn't your fault. Some asshole hacker is responsible, not you." But Rebecca couldn't shake the feeling that she'd failed somehow. Failed to protect her work, failed her client, failed to maintain the professional boundaries that had kept her safe for 3 years. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Daniel. "Please talk to me. I don't care about the photos. I care about you." Rebecca stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. What was she supposed to say? That she cared about him too, after exactly 1 dinner? That she was terrified because everything about this situation was spiraling out of her control? That she wanted to believe him, but trusting people had never been her strong suit? She set the phone down without responding. "You're doing it again," Tessa said quietly. "Doing what?" "Pushing away anyone who tries to get close. The same thing you did with Marcus, and with that gallery owner who wanted to feature your work. And with this is different." "How?" "Because Marcus was a distraction I couldn't afford. The gallery wanted creative control I wasn't willing to give up. And this," Rebecca gestured at her screen, "this is a legitimate crisis that could destroy everything I've built." "Or," Tessa said carefully, "it's an excuse to protect yourself from actually letting someone in." Before Rebecca could respond, her phone rang. Not Daniel this time, Caroline Pierce. Rebecca's stomach clenched as she answered. "Caroline, I'm so sorry about. We need to meet." Caroline's voice was crisp, professional, revealing nothing. "Today, 11 a.m. at the Foundation offices. Can you make it?" "Of course. Yes, I'll be there. Bring your lawyer if you have one. We'll have ours present." The line went dead. Rebecca looked at Tessa. "I think I'm about to get fired from a job I already completed." The Westbrook Foundation offices occupied the top 3 floors of a building in Midtown, all glass walls and modern art, and the kind of calculated minimalism that whispered, "We have so much money we don't need to prove it." Rebecca arrived 10 minutes early with Janet, both of them dressed in their most professional attire. The receptionist led them to a conference room where Caroline was already waiting with two people. Rebecca didn't recognize a man in an expensive suit who had to be the lawyer, and a woman with a tablet who was probably PR. Daniel wasn't there. Rebecca didn't know whether to feel relieved or disappointed. "Thank you for coming on short notice," Caroline said, gesturing to the chairs across from her. "This is Marcus Chen, our general counsel, and Simone Davis, our communications director." Introductions were made. Everyone sat. The tension in the room was thick enough to photograph. "Let's get to the point," Marcus said, sliding a folder across the table. "We've reviewed the security breach and your lawyer's documentation. We believe your account of what happened." Rebecca's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you. I've already implemented additional security measures and—" "However," Caroline interrupted, "we have a significant problem. The leaked photographs, combined with the tabloid speculation about your relationship with Daniel, have created a narrative that's damaging to the Foundation's reputation." "There is no relationship," Rebecca said. "We had one dinner, which was interrupted by this crisis. The optics suggest otherwise." Simone turned her tablet toward Rebecca, showing a split-screen image, the leaked photo of Daniel looking at her, alongside a photo from his ex-girlfriend Vanessa's new Foundation announcement. The headline read, "While Westbrook chases romance, ex-partner focuses on results." "This is absurd," Janet said. "My client is being victimized twice, first by the hack, now by baseless speculation." "We agree," Marcus said, "which is why we're not pursuing legal action against Rebecca. Instead, we'd like to propose a solution." Caroline opened her own folder. "The Foundation is hosting a press conference tomorrow to announce our affordable housing partnership with the city. It's crucial that the focus remains on the initiative, not on tabloid gossip." "What does that have to do with Rebecca?" Janet asked. "We'd like her there," Simone said. "We'll issue a joint statement. The photos were stolen. Rebecca is a consummate professional. The Foundation stands behind her work, and any suggestion of impropriety is categorically false." "That sounds reasonable," Janet said, but Rebecca's instincts were prickling. There was something else. Something Caroline wasn't saying yet. "There's one more thing," Caroline continued, confirming Rebecca's suspicion. "Daniel has agreed not to attend the press conference. We think it's best if you two aren't seen together publicly for the foreseeable future. No contact, no communication, nothing that could be misinterpreted." Rebecca's chest tightened. "For how long?" "At least until the housing initiative is finalized and the media attention dies down. 6 months. Maybe longer." "You're asking me to avoid him completely?" "We're asking you to be professional," Caroline said, her tone sharpening. "The Foundation has invested significant political capital in this partnership. We cannot afford any distractions. And if I don't, then we'll issue a statement without you, distance ourselves from the controversy, and make it clear that we consider the security breach a serious violation of our contract." Marcus's expression was neutral, but the threat was clear. "Your reputation in this industry would be complicated." Janet put a hand on Rebecca's arm in warning, but Rebecca was already doing the math. Refuse, and she'd be painted as unprofessional, unreliable, someone who couldn't be trusted with sensitive work. Accept, and she'd have to pretend Daniel didn't exist for 6 months or more. 6 months ago, that would have been easy. 6 months ago, she didn't know him. "I need to talk to Daniel first," Rebecca said. "That's not advisable," Simone said quickly. "I don't care." Rebecca stood. "You're asking me to agree to something that affects both of us. I'm not making that decision without talking to him first." Caroline exchanged a look with Marcus. "He's in his office, top floor." Rebecca rode the elevator up alone, her heart hammering. She'd spent the past 18 hours avoiding Daniel's calls and texts, and now she was voluntarily walking into his office. The irony wasn't lost on her. The top floor was quieter than the others, with actual walls instead of glass, and a space that felt more personal. Daniel's assistant waved her through without questions clearly. She was expected. Daniel's office door was open. He was standing by the window, phone to his ear, and when he turned and saw her, he ended the call immediately. Rebecca. Just her name, but the relief in his voice almost broke her. "Hi," she said inadequately. They stared at each other for a long moment. He looked tired, she realized. Dark circles under his eyes, his hair messier than usual, his tie loosened like he'd been pulling at it. "I'm sorry I didn't call back," Rebecca said. "I was trying to fix everything and I didn't know what to say, and you don't have to apologize." Daniel crossed to her but stopped a careful distance away. "This isn't your fault. Caroline told you about their proposal, the press conference?" "She ran it by me first," he said, looked pained. "Rebecca, I want you to know I didn't agree to this because I want to avoid you. I agreed because I don't want your career destroyed, because you had dinner with me. Very noble. I'm serious. You've worked too hard to build your business. I won't let my family's drama and Vanessa's vendetta ruin that for you. So we just don't talk for 6 months? If that's what it takes to protect you, yes." Rebecca laughed, a bitter sound. "That's very selfless, very heroic, and also very convenient." Daniel's expression shifted. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means this is exactly what I was afraid of." Rebecca wrapped her arms around herself. Getting close to someone, starting to care, and then having everything fall apart. At least now we have a good excuse, right? Foundation business, professional boundaries, much cleaner than admitting that this was a terrible idea from the start. "You don't believe that, don't I?" Rebecca met his eyes. "We barely know each other, Daniel. One dinner doesn't mean anything. It meant something to me." The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. She wanted to cross the room, to close the distance between them, to say that it meant something to her too. But that would require vulnerability, trust, believing that something good could happen without immediately falling apart. Rebecca had never been good at any of those things. "I should go," she said instead. "The press conference is tomorrow. I need to prepare." "Rebecca, I'll see you in 6 months, Daniel. Maybe." She walked out before he could respond, before she could change her mind, before she could make the mistake of hoping for something more. Behind her, she didn't see Daniel lean against his desk, head in his hands. And she definitely didn't see the way he looked at his phone, at the unsent text that read, "Please don't do this. Please don't run." But he didn't send it. Some distances, once created, were easier to maintain than to cross. Let me guess. You're already loving our story and want to know how it ends, right? Then show your love publicly by liking it already. I know you want to subscribe too. Just do it quickly. And let's dive back in, shall we? 3 months passed in a blur of work and deliberate distraction. Rebecca threw herself into her business with the kind of manic energy that worried Tessa and impressed her accountant. She booked every job she could find. Weddings, corporate events, family portraits, even a quinceañera in Queens that required her to learn basic Spanish phrases for posing instructions. The press conference had gone well. She'd stood beside Caroline and Marcus, delivered her prepared statement about the security breach, and answered exactly 3 carefully vetted questions before being ushered off stage. The media had moved on within a week, chasing fresher scandals. The Westbrook Foundation had paid her invoice in full, with a bonus for her professionalism during a difficult situation. Caroline had even sent a brief email saying they'd consider working with her again, once sufficient time has passed. Everything should have felt like a victory. Instead, Rebecca felt hollow. She deleted Daniel's number from her phone after the first month, not because he'd tried to contact her, he hadn't, respecting the agreement, but because she kept finding herself staring at it at 2 a.m., thumb hovering over the call button. Tessa noticed, of course. Tessa noticed everything. "You're doing the thing again," she said one Friday evening, sprawled on Rebecca's couch, while Rebecca edited photos from a corporate retreat. "What thing?" "The thing where you work yourself into exhaustion so you don't have to feel anything." "I'm fine. You're miserable. You've shot 15 events in 12 weeks. You're fine-tuning photos that were perfect 3 edits ago. and you've turned down every social invitation I've extended for the past month. I've been busy. I've been busy. You've been hiding." Tessa sat up. "When was the last time you shot something just because you wanted to? Not for a client, not for money, just for you?" Rebecca opened her mouth to answer, then realized she couldn't remember. "I'm building a business, Tess. I don't have time for hobby photography." "Photography isn't your hobby, it's your passion. Or it was, before you turned it into this soulless content machine. That's not fair, isn't it?" Tessa pulled up Rebecca's Instagram on her phone. "Look at your feed. Corporate event. Wedding. Corporate event. Engagement shoot. Corporate event. Where's the Rebecca who spent 4 hours in a tree for a sunrise? Who waded into the Hudson for a reflection shot? The one who saw beauty in random moments and had to capture them?" Rebecca looked away. That Rebecca didn't pay rent. That Rebecca was happy. The words hit harder than they should have. Because Tessa was right. Rebecca couldn't remember the last time she'd picked up her camera just to see what she could find. Couldn't remember the last time photography had felt like joy instead of obligation. "I don't know how to do this," Rebecca admitted quietly. "How to want something and not ruin it. How to let myself care about someone without immediately sabotaging it." "You're talking about Daniel. I'm talking about everything." Rebecca closed her laptop. "My whole life is built on control. Controlling the frame, the light, the composition. I can make a photograph. Perfect. But real life? Relationships? Those are messy and unpredictable and worth it," Tessa finished. "Rebecca, you can't photograph your way through life. At some point, you have to actually live it." Before Rebecca could respond, her phone buzzed. An email from an unfamiliar address with the subject line, "Regarding your father's Nikon." Rebecca's blood went cold. Nobody mentioned her father's camera. Nobody knew about it except Tessa and her mother. She opened the email. "Dear Miss Hartley, my name is Arthur Brennan. I was your father's photography mentor when he was first starting out, before you were born. I recently came across some of his early work while organizing my archive, and I thought you might like to see it. I'm hosting a small exhibition of emerging and legacy photographers at the Brennan Gallery in Brooklyn next month. I'd be honored if you'd consider including some of your own work alongside your father's. Your father often spoke about wanting to create something meaningful art that mattered beyond the moment. I see that same quality in the samples of your work I've found online, particularly your personal projects from your NYU portfolio. Please let me know if you're interested. I think you and your father have an important story to tell. Best regards, Arthur Brennan." Rebecca read the email 3 times. Her father had never mentioned an Arthur Brennan. Then again, there were a lot of things about her father's life before she was born that had died with him. Stories her mother couldn't or wouldn't tell. Dreams he'd set aside when real life demanded it. "What is it?" Tessa asked, noticing Rebecca's expression. Rebecca showed her the email. Tessa read it, then looked at Rebecca with knowing eyes. "You're going to do it. I don't have personal work to show. Everything I shoot is for clients. So shoot something new." Tessa stood, grabbing Rebecca's coat from the chair. "Right now. Come on." "Tess, it's 8 p.m. on a Friday." "Exactly. The city is alive. The light is beautiful. And you need to remember why you fell in love with this in the first place." She tossed Rebecca the coat. "I'm not taking no for an answer." They ended up in Central Park, even though it was February and freezing. Rebecca brought her father's old Nikon, the one she hadn't touched in months, preferring her digital equipment for professional work. Film was unpredictable, expensive, unforgiving. You couldn't see the result immediately, couldn't delete the bad shots, couldn't control every variable. It was exactly what she needed. Rebecca wandered through the park, Tessa trailing behind with coffee and commentary. At first, Rebecca's instincts were to look for the perfect shot, the ideal composition, the flawless lighting, but something about the weight of her father's camera in her hands, the mechanical click of the shutter, The knowledge that she only had 36 exposures made her slow down, made her see differently. She photographed a couple arguing on a bench, not fighting, but the kind of intense conversation that comes from caring too much. An old man feeding pigeons, his expression content in a way that suggested this was his daily ritual. A teenager doing skateboard tricks, failing repeatedly but getting back up each time. Imperfect moments, real moments. The kind she used to seek out before building a business had taught her to value polish over truth. "There she is," Tessa said softly as Rebecca knelt in the snow to capture the reflection of streetlights in a puddle. "There's my friend." Rebecca finished the roll as the park lights came on. The last shot, a silhouette of the Bow Bridge against the darkening sky. Her fingers were numb, her knees were wet from kneeling in snow, and she felt more alive than she had in months. "Thank you," she told Tessa as they headed toward the subway. "For what?" "For not letting me turn into someone I don't recognize. That's what best friends do." Tessa bumped her shoulder. "Now, about this exhibition, I need to shoot more. A whole series maybe. Something that connects to my dad's work, but is also mine." "What kind of series?" Rebecca thought about the email, about her father's dream of creating something meaningful, about the photographs she'd taken tonight, messy, imperfect, real. Love, maybe, or connection. The moments between moments, when people think no one's watching. She paused. "All the things I'm terrible at in real life, but can somehow see through a lens." That's very meta. That's very accurate. They rode the subway back to Rebecca's apartment, and she spent the next hour drafting a response to Arthur Brennan. She'd do the exhibition. She'd create new work. She'd figure out what story she and her father had to tell across the years that separated them. It was only later, lying in bed and scrolling mindlessly through her phone, that Rebecca saw it. A notification from the Westbrook Foundation's Instagram account. She'd muted it months ago, but hadn't unfollowed. Against her better judgment, she clicked. The post was from earlier that evening, a photo of Daniel at a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the first building in the Affordable Housing Initiative. He was smiling, shaking hands with the mayor, looking every inch the successful philanthropist. But Rebecca, who spent her life reading faces through a camera lens, could see what others might miss. The tightness around his eyes, the smile that didn't quite reach them, the way his shoulders were set, like he was carrying something heavy. The caption read, "Thrilled to announce the completion of Phase 1 of our affordable housing partnership. This is what happens when we focus on what matters: community, commitment, and putting people first. Number Westbrook Foundation, number affordable housing, number community first." The comments were full of praise. Congratulations from supporters, heart emojis from people who didn't know him, and one comment, buried near the bottom, from an account Rebecca didn't recognize. "Guess he finally learned to keep his personal life separate from business." Smart move. Rebecca clicked on the account. Private, but the profile photo was visible. Vanessa, Daniel's ex. She stared at the comment, at the implication behind it. That Daniel had been unprofessional before. That keeping Rebecca at a distance was proof he'd learned his lesson. Something twisted in Rebecca's chest, anger maybe, or regret. She'd spent 3 months convincing herself that the separation had been necessary, professional, the smart choice for both their careers. But what if it had just been easier, safer, another way for both of them to avoid risking something real? Rebecca looked at the photos she'd taken that evening, the arguing couple, the persevering teenager, the content old man, all of them choosing connection, despite the risk of pain or failure or imperfection. And here she was, choosing safety, choosing control, choosing the perfectly composed photograph, instead of the messy, unpredictable reality. Her father's voice echoed in her memory, something he'd said when he first gave her the camera. "The best photographs aren't the ones where everything is perfect. They're the ones where you capture the truth, even when it's uncomfortable." Rebecca opened her text messages, scrolled to the conversation history with Daniel that she'd never deleted, just stopped reading. His last message, sent the day after the press conference, was still there. "I hope you're okay. I hope this gets easier. I hope. A lot of things. Be well, Rebecca. She'd never responded. Now, 3 months later, her thumbs hovered over the keyboard. She typed, "Are you happy?" Then deleted it. Typed, "I miss talking to you." Deleted that too. Finally, she typed, "I'm doing an exhibition next month. My first personal work in years. I thought you should know. Not because we can do anything about it, just because I wanted to tell you." She stared at the message for a full minute before hitting send. Then she turned off her phone, her heart hammering, and tried to convince herself that truth was worth the risk of his response or his silence. Outside her window, the city hummed with life. Somewhere in it, Daniel was probably asleep, or working late, or thinking about affordable housing, instead of a photographer he'd had one dinner with 3 months ago. Or maybe, just maybe, he was thinking about her too. Rebecca wouldn't know until morning. But for the first time in 3 months, she was willing to wait and see. Daniel's response came at 6:47 a.m., while Rebecca was still in that hazy space between sleep and waking. Daniel's text read, "I'd like to come to your exhibition, if that's okay. If it's not, I understand." Rebecca stared at the message, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. 3 months of silence, and now this simple, direct, leaving the choice entirely in her hands. She typed back, "Opening night is March 15th. Gallery opens at 7. Daniel responded, "I'll be there." That should have been the end of it. A clean, professional exchange. But Rebecca's fingers moved before her brain could stop them. "Are you happy?" The 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Appeared again, disappeared. Finally, he responded, "I don't know how to answer that." Rebecca set her phone down, her hands shaking slightly. She didn't know what answer she'd been hoping for, but his honesty felt like a gift and a wound at the same time. The next 3 weeks were a frenzy of shooting, developing, and second-guessing every artistic choice she'd ever made. Arthur Brennan's gallery was small but prestigious, tucked in a converted warehouse in Dumbo with exposed brick and perfect natural light. When Rebecca met him to discuss the exhibition, she understood immediately why her father had sought him out as a mentor. Arthur was in his 70s, with kind eyes and hands that trembled slightly from decades of working with chemicals in darkrooms. He showed Rebecca her father's early work street photography from the late 90s, raw and intimate, and completely different from the safe corporate headshots her mother had told her about. "Your father had an eye for truth," Arthur said, pointing to a photograph of a homeless woman sharing her sandwich with a stray dog. "He saw dignity in places other people looked away from." "Why did he stop?" Rebecca asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "Same reason most artists stop. Life got complicated. He got married, had you, needed steady income. He told me he was putting dreams on hold until things stabilized." Arthur's expression was sad. "They never did. There's always another bill, another responsibility, another reason to wait." Rebecca thought about her own 3 months of corporate events and safe, profitable work. "How do you know when it's worth the risk?" she asked. "You don't. That's what makes it risky," Arthur smiled. "But I think you're figuring that out." For the exhibition, Rebecca created a series she called Between Moments. 20 photographs of people in states of transition. A bride before the ceremony, her face uncertain. A graduate reading her diploma, somewhere between relief and terror. A man at a crossroads, literally standing in the middle of an intersection, looking both ways, and one photograph she'd taken without planning to. A self-portrait in her apartment window's reflection, camera obscuring her face, the city blurred behind her. Caught between who she was and who she was trying to become, she hung her father's work alongside hers, creating a dialogue across decades. His photographs of struggle and dignity, hers of hesitation and hope. Tessa came to see the installation the day before the opening. She walked through the gallery slowly, pausing at each photograph, then turned to Rebecca with tears in her eyes. "This is it," she said. "This is the work you were meant to make." "It's terrifying." "Good art usually is," Tessa responded. The opening was scheduled for 7 p.m. on a Friday. By 6:30, Rebecca had changed her outfit 3 times and was seriously considering faking a sudden illness. "You're not backing out," Tessa said firmly, blocking the gallery's back exit. "Arthur has already sold 2 of your pieces. There are actual critics here. And Daniel is, don't say it, standing by the door looking like he's about to face a firing squad." Rebecca's stomach flipped. "He's early. So are you. Maybe that means something." Tessa adjusted Rebecca's collar. "Go talk to him. Or don't. But at least acknowledge he showed up." Rebecca peered around the corner. Daniel stood near the entrance in a dark suit, no tie, looking at the exhibition poster with an intensity that made her chest ache. He looked different, somehow, more tired, maybe, or more real without the foundation's PR armor around him. She was about to step forward when his assistant, Caroline Pierce, walked in. Rebecca's breath caught. Caroline hadn't been on the guest list, hadn't responded to the invitation Rebecca had sent purely as a professional courtesy. But there she was, perfectly composed in a tailored dress, scanning the gallery with sharp, assessing eyes. Their eyes met. Caroline's expression didn't change, but she walked directly toward Rebecca. "Interesting work," Caroline said without preamble. "Very personal. Thank you for coming." "I didn't come for you." Caroline glanced toward Daniel. "I came because Daniel insisted this exhibition was important, and I wanted to see what could possibly be worth risking everything we've built." Rebecca stiffened. "I'm not sure what you mean. Don't you?" Caroline pulled out her phone, showing Rebecca a screenshot from a gossip blog posted 2 hours ago. The headline read, "Westbrook Foundation Romance. Rekindled? Heir spotted entering photographer's gallery." The photo showed Daniel entering the gallery, taken from across the street. Someone had been watching. "Waiting. I literally just got here 20 minutes ago," Rebecca said. "How, Vanessa?" Caroline's tone was clipped. "She's had someone watching Daniel for weeks, waiting for any excuse to revive the scandal. And congratulations. You've given her one. I invited him to my exhibition. That's professional courtesy. Not, it doesn't matter what it actually is. It matters what it looks like." Caroline's voice dropped lower, though the gallery was still mostly empty. "The Affordable Housing Initiative is in a critical phase. The City Council votes on the next phase of funding next week. If they think Daniel is distracted by personal drama instead of focused on the project, they'll pull support. That's absurd. Daniel's personal life has nothing to do with. Optics matter, Rebecca. Politics is perception. And Vanessa is very good at managing perception." Caroline's jaw tightened. She's already sent a statement to 3 major outlets, suggesting that Daniel's judgment has been compromised, that the foundation can't be trusted with public funds if he can't maintain professional boundaries. Rebecca felt sick. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to ask yourself what's more important, a few hours at your art show or thousands of families who need affordable housing." Caroline's gaze was steely. "I want you to think about whether your personal feelings are worth destroying something Daniel has worked on for 18 months. "That's not fair," Rebecca responded. "No, it's not. But it's reality." Caroline softened slightly. "Look, I know you care about him. And I know he cares about you more than is probably wise. But caring isn't enough when there are real consequences for real people." Before Rebecca could respond, Arthur appeared with a couple interested in purchasing one of her father's photographs. Caroline used the interruption to move away, leaving Rebecca standing there with her thoughts churning. She looked across the gallery. Daniel had moved to stand in front of her self-portrait, the one where she was caught between identities. He was studying it with that same intensity, like he was trying to read some hidden message in the composition. Tessa materialized at Rebecca's elbow. "I heard some of that. Caroline's playing dirty. She's not wrong, though. If my exhibition tanks Daniel's housing project, how do I live with that? By remembering that you're not responsible for Vanessa's vendetta or the media's obsession with manufactured drama." Tessa grabbed Rebecca's shoulders. "You invited Daniel because you wanted him here. He came because he wanted to be here. Those are 2 adults making choices. Caroline doesn't get to turn that into emotional blackmail." But if the project fails, then it fails because of corrupt politics and manipulation, not because two people went to an art show. Tessa's voice was fierce. Don't let them make you small again, Becca. Don't let them convince you that wanting something is selfish. The gallery was filling with people now. Critics, collectors, friends, strangers. Arthur clinked a glass to get everyone's attention for his opening remarks. Rebecca stood frozen, watching Daniel watch her self-portrait, while Caroline watched them both with calculating eyes. The opening remarks began. Arthur talked about legacy and courage, about artists who chose truth over comfort. He introduced Rebecca's work as a conversation between generations, about the moments we're afraid to capture. People applauded. Rebecca walked to the front, prepared remarks clutched in her shaking hand. She looked out at the crowd and saw Tessa, grinning with pride, Arthur, encouraging and kind, Caroline, coolly expectant, Daniel, standing in the back now, his expression unreadable, and by the door, partially hidden, a woman with a camera, not a guest, a photographer, hired by someone to document this night for all the wrong reasons. Rebecca thought about her father's photographs of dignity and truth, about the self-portrait of a woman caught between identities, about 3 months of playing it safe and profitable and empty. She set down her prepared remarks. I almost didn't do this exhibition, she said, her voice quieter than Arthur's but steady. I spent 3 months convincing myself that playing it safe was the same as being professional, that wanting something meant being selfish, that the only way to protect yourself was to never risk anything that mattered. She looked at her father's photographs. My father stopped taking the photographs he loved because he thought he had to choose between his art and his responsibility. I think he regretted that choice every day for the rest of his life. Her eyes found Daniel's. I don't want to live with that regret. I don't want to spend my life taking perfect photographs of other people's moments while being too afraid to live my own. Caroline's expression had gone very still. So yes, this exhibition is personal. It's messy and imperfect and risky. And if that makes someone uncomfortable, or if it creates complications for people I care about, I'm sorry. Rebecca's voice strengthened. But I'm not sorry for creating it. I'm not sorry for inviting people who matter to me. And I'm not sorry for choosing truth over comfort. She stepped back. The gallery was silent for a heartbeat. Then Tessa started clapping. Arthur joined in. Others followed, until the room was full of applause. Rebecca didn't look at Caroline. She looked at Daniel. He was smiling, really smiling, for the first time since she'd met him. And he was walking toward her, through the crowd, past Caroline's disapproving stare, past the photographer by the door who was capturing every moment. He stopped in front of Rebecca, close enough that she could see the light in his eyes. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen, he said quietly, just for her, or the stupidest. Sometimes those are the same thing. Rebecca laughed, shaky but real. Your housing project will survive or it won't. But either way, it won't be because you lived your life honestly. He glanced at Caroline, then back at Rebecca. I'm tired of letting other people's agendas dictate my choices. I'm tired of trying to be perfect instead of real. We barely know each other, Rebecca whispered. Then let's change that. Daniel offered his hand. Let me buy you coffee. Or dinner. Or just let me stand here and look at your incredible work and try not to say anything too embarrassing about how talented you are. Rebecca took his hand. Across the gallery, Caroline turned and left without a word. The photographer by the door took another picture. And Rebecca decided, for the first time in her life, that she didn't care what it looked like from the outside. She only cared about what was real. The photograph appeared online before midnight. Rebecca saw it first on her phone while lying in bed, too wired from the exhibition to sleep. The gossip blog had gone with the most damning angle possible. Daniel and Rebecca holding hands in the gallery, her looking up at him looking at her like nothing else in the room existed. The headline, Westbrook heir chooses romance over responsibility, housing initiative in jeopardy. The article was worse. It painted Daniel as a reckless playboy who'd learned nothing from the previous scandal. It quoted anonymous sources close to the foundation, obviously Vanessa, expressing concern about his judgment. It mentioned the city council vote scheduled for Monday, 3 days away, and suggested that Daniel's personal entanglements raised questions about his ability to manage a multi-million-dollar public-private partnership. Rebecca's stomach turned as she read the comments. Rich people always put themselves first. Those families need housing, and he's worried about getting laid. This is why we can't trust the 1% with social programs. Her phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. I'm sorry. I knew this would happen and I did it anyway. Rebecca, don't apologize for holding my hand. Daniel, the vote is Monday. Caroline just called. 3 council members are wavering. Because of a photograph? Daniel. Because Vanessa spent the last 4 hours calling everyone who matters, suggesting I'm too distracted to be a reliable partner. She's pushing them to delay the vote pending a leadership review of the foundation. Rebecca sat up, her heart pounding. What does that mean? Daniel, it means she's trying to get me removed from the project entirely, or at least sidelined, until she can position herself as the more stable choice to lead it. Rebecca, that's insane. Daniel, that's politics. A pause, then. I don't regret it, Rebecca. Whatever happens, I don't regret tonight. Rebecca stared at that message for a long time. Then she called him. He answered on the first ring. Hey. Rebecca's voice was steadier than she felt. What can I do? Nothing. This isn't your problem to fix. Like hell it isn't. That photograph exists because I invited you, because I gave that speech, because you were honest about what you wanted. That's not a crime, Rebecca. It is if it costs thousands of families their housing. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly. I've been thinking about what you said, about your father, choosing responsibility over his art, and regretting it. Daniel's voice was rough. I've spent my entire life making the responsible choice, following the foundation's rules, meeting everyone's expectations, putting duty before everything else. And you know what I have to show for it? A housing project that might fail anyway, an ex who hates me, and a board chair who sees me as a PR liability. Daniel, I'm not saying the project doesn't matter. It does. Those families matter more than anything. He took a breath. But I'm also tired of living like every choice I make has to be calculated for maximum public approval. I'm tired of being a symbol instead of a person. Rebecca understood that feeling more than she could say. So, what do? We fight. Together, if you're willing. Separately, if that's smarter. A pause. What do you want, Rebecca? The question hung between them, the same one she'd been avoiding for months. What did she want? Not the safe answer. Not the responsible answer. Not the answer that made everyone else comfortable. The true answer. I want to know you, Rebecca said quietly. Not Daniel Westbrook, Foundationaire. Not the guy in the PR statements. You. I want to have coffee and argue about art, and hear about what you actually care about when no one's watching. I want to see if this thing between us is real, or if it's just timing and proximity, and rebellion against other people's expectations. And if it is real, Daniel asked, then I want to stop running from it, because it's complicated. She could hear Daniel's smile through the phone. That's a good answer. What do you want? She then asked him. The same thing. All of it. His voice turned serious. But I need to handle this situation first. If Vanessa succeeds in delaying that vote, the project could die. The momentum will be gone. The political will evaporated. And those families will pay the price for our drama. Then we make sure she doesn't succeed. How? Rebecca thought about the exhibition, about her father's photographs of dignity in difficult places, about the power of showing truth instead of just telling it. We changed the narrative, she said slowly. Right now, Vanessa's controlling the story, making it about your judgment, your distractions, your personal life. But what if we make it about the actual project? About the families who need it? About why it matters more than gossip? The foundation already has a PR strategy. I'm not talking about PR. I'm talking about truth. Rebecca was thinking out loud now, the idea taking shape. What if we documented it? Real photographs, real stories from the people the project would help. Not staged press photos, but actual human beings explaining what affordable housing would mean for their lives. The vote is in 3 days. Then we have 3 days. Rebecca was already pulling up her calendar, calculating what she could reschedule. I can shoot. You can facilitate access to the people who've applied for housing. We put together something real, not propaganda, not spin, just honest documentation of why this matters. And then what? Post it on Instagram and hope it goes viral? No. We present it to the city council before the vote. We make them look at the actual human cost of letting politics kill this project. Rebecca's mind was racing now. And yes, maybe we also release it publicly. Let people see what's actually at stake versus what the gossip blogs are saying. Daniel was quiet for a moment. That could backfire spectacularly. If it looks like we're trying to manipulate sympathy, then we make sure it doesn't look like manipulation. We make sure it's genuine. Rebecca's conviction was growing. This is what I do, Daniel. I capture truth. Let me do that for something that actually matters. It's a risk, he said finally. Everything worth doing is. Another pause. Then, okay, let's do it. Really? Rebecca asked. Really. But Rebecca, if this makes things worse, if the council thinks we're being exploitative or opportunistic, then we'll deal with it. Together. She took a breath. No more playing it safe. No more letting other people write our story. No more letting other people write our story, Daniel echoed. I'll make some calls tonight. I can probably get us access to at least a dozen families by tomorrow morning. Will that be enough time? It'll have to be. They spent the next hour on the phone, planning logistics. Daniel would coordinate with the foundation's housing outreach team, getting permission and arranging times. Rebecca would handle the photography, keeping it documentary-style honest, intimate, unglamorous. By 2 a.m., they had a schedule. Saturday and Sunday for shooting, Sunday night for editing, Monday morning for presentation to the council before the afternoon vote. It was aggressive, probably impossible, and entirely dependent on dozens of things going right. Rebecca had never been more certain of anything in her life. Saturday morning, Rebecca met Daniel outside a cramped apartment in the Bronx. Maria Gonzalez, single mother of 3, worked 2 jobs and still couldn't afford anything larger than their 1-bedroom unit where the kids slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. Why do you want to photograph us? Maria asked, suspicious but willing. Because people need to see what this housing project actually means, Rebecca said honestly. Not statistics or political talking points. Real families, real lives, real needs. Maria looked at Daniel. You're the rich kid running this thing? I'm one of the people trying to make it happen, yes. Why should we trust you? Rich people always promise things. Then the promises disappear when they get complicated. Daniel didn't offer platitudes or PR-approved reassurances. You shouldn't trust me based on promises. You should judge me based on what I actually deliver. This project has been 18 months of fighting through red tape, politics, and people who'd rather it fail. I'm still fighting. That's all I can offer, the commitment to keep fighting. Maria studied him for a long moment. Then she opened the door wider. Okay, come in. But I'm not putting on makeup or pretending things are better than they are. I don't want you to, Rebecca said. She spent 2 hours photographing Maria's family. Not staged portraits, but real moments. Maria helping her daughter with homework at the kitchen table, while her son practiced reading aloud. The 3 kids sharing the pull-out couch, their belongings in neat stacks because there was no storage. Maria looking at an acceptance letter from a local college, a dream deferred because she couldn't afford tuition and rent. The affordable housing would cut my rent by 40%, Maria said quietly. That's tuition. That's a future. Rebecca captured her expression, hope mixed with the exhaustion of hoping too many times before. They visited 11 more families over 2 days. Each story was different but the same. People working hard, playing by the rules, and still unable to afford basic stability. Teachers, nurses, construction workers, grocery store clerks, the people who made the city function, priced out of the city they served. Daniel was there for every visit, not as a wealthy benefactor, but as someone who listened, really listened. He sat on worn couches, drank bad coffee, held babies while parents talked. He took notes about specific needs, specific barriers, making promises about what the project could and couldn't do. Rebecca photographed him too, though he didn't notice. Daniel crouched down to talk to a 5-year-old about her drawings. Daniel listening to an elderly man explain how gentrification had pushed him out of 3 neighborhoods in 10 years. Daniel looking at a bulletin board covered in eviction notices, his expression devastated. These weren't the photographs of a reckless playboy. They were photographs of someone who genuinely cared, who saw the people his project would help as humans instead of statistics. Sunday night, Rebecca worked until 4 a.m. editing. She selected 40 photographs that told a complete story. Families in 2 small spaces, kids doing homework in challenging conditions, parents juggling impossible choices, and through it all, the resilience and dignity that Arthur had taught her to look for. She included 2 photos of Daniel not centered, not making him the hero, but showing him as part of the story. Someone who saw the need and was trying to address it. The final image was of Maria's daughter, 8 years old, sitting at that kitchen table with her homework. The caption would be Maria's words, "The affordable housing project means my daughter might grow up in a home instead of a series of apartments we can barely afford." That's not politics. That's her future. At 5 a.m., Rebecca sent the complete series to Daniel. At 5:02, he called her. "Rebecca." His voice was thick with emotion. I don't have words. Is it enough? Will it work? I don't know, but it's truth. It's what matters. A pause. Thank you for seeing them, for seeing this. Thank you for letting me. The council meets at 2 p.m. Can you have prints ready by noon? Already ordered. They'll be done by 10. Then I'll pick you up at 11. We present together. Daniel, maybe you should do this alone. If I'm there, then you're there. We're done hiding, remember? We're done letting other people's agendas control us. His voice was firm. This work is yours. These families trusted both of us. We show up together. Rebecca's throat tightened. Okay, together. She hung up and looked at her father's Nikon sitting on her desk. She could almost hear his voice. The best photographs capture the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. She'd done that. Now she just had to hope it was enough. Outside her window, the city was waking up. In 8 hours, the council would vote. In 8 hours, they'd know if truth could compete with politics. In 8 hours, everything would change. Rebecca showered, changed clothes, and tried to prepare herself for whatever came next. The city council chamber was smaller than Rebecca had expected. Just a curved wooden desk where 15 council members sat, facing rows of plastic chairs for public observers. The room smelled like old coffee and bureaucracy. Daniel had been right about one thing. Vanessa knew how to make an entrance. She arrived at 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the vote. Flanked by 2 impeccably dressed lawyers and a PR consultant Rebecca recognized from cable news. Vanessa's expression was serene confidence, the look of someone who'd already won and was just waiting for everyone else to catch up. She spotted Daniel and Rebecca setting up the photograph display at the front of the room, and her smile sharpened. "Daniel," Vanessa's voice carried across the chamber. "I didn't realize we were doing show and tell today. We're presenting documentation relevant to the vote," Daniel said evenly, not looking up from arranging the prints. How quaint. Though I'm not sure heartstring-tugging photography is an appropriate substitute for actual fiscal analysis and leadership accountability. Vanessa turned to the council members who were filing in. "I've prepared a comprehensive review of the foundation's current management structure, which I think you'll find raises significant concerns about what exactly?" The voice came from the back of the room. Caroline Pierce walked in, followed by Arthur Brennan, and Rebecca's heart jumped at least 15 of the families they'd photographed over the weekend. Maria Gonzalez was there with her 3 kids. The elderly man Daniel had listened to. The the nurse who worked night shifts, the teacher who'd cried while describing how she couldn't afford to live in the district where she taught. They filed into the observer seats, quiet but present. Vanessa's composure cracked for just a second. "What is this?" "Public comment period," Caroline said crisply. "These residents have signed up to speak before the vote. All properly registered, all within the rules." She handed a clipboard to the council clerk. "I believe transparency was something you were advocating for." Rebecca stared at Caroline in shock. The woman who'd told her to stay away from Daniel, who'd implied that Rebecca was a selfish distraction. She was here, helping them? Caroline caught Rebecca's eye and gave the tiniest nod. Not forgiveness, exactly, but alliance. Council President Janet Morrison called the meeting to order at 2 p.m. sharp. She was a black woman in her 60s, with steel-gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd heard every manipulation tactic in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. "We're here to vote on the Westbrook Foundation Affordable Housing Initiative," Morrison said. "But first, I understand we have public comment and..." "A presentation?" She looked at Daniel. "Yes, Madam President. With your permission, I'd like to show the council documentation of the families this project would serve. Real people, real needs. Photographed this weekend by Rebecca Hartley." Daniel's voice was steady. "This isn't propaganda, it's truth." Morrison studied him for a moment. "You have 10 minutes. Vanessa stood. "Madam President, I object. This is clearly an emotional manipulation tactic designed to distract from serious questions about..." "Miss Ashford, you'll have your opportunity to speak." Morrison's tone was ice. "But these residents took time off work to be here, and I'm inclined to hear from them first." "Sit down." Vanessa sat, her jaw tight. Daniel and Rebecca unveiled the photographs, mounted on large boards around the room. As each image was revealed, Rebecca provided brief context, not editorializing, just stating facts. Maria's rent versus income ratio, the teacher's commute time from affordable neighborhoods, the nurse's childcare costs. But the photographs spoke louder than any statistics. There was no hiding from the humanity in those images, the dignity and struggle, the hope and exhaustion, the fundamental unfairness of working full-time and still not being able to afford a safe place to live. The council members were silent, looking at the images. Then, Maria Gonzalez stood to speak. "My name is Maria. I work 2 jobs receptionist during the day, cleaning offices at night. My kids are 8, 6, and 4. We live in a 1-bedroom apartment where the heat doesn't always work, and there's mold in the bathroom that the landlord won't fix because he knows we can't afford to move." Her voice was quiet but clear. "I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking for a chance to afford rent and still feed my kids. That's all this project is, a chance." She sat down. Her 8-year-old daughter squeezed her hand. One by one, the other families spoke. The stories accumulated like evidence not of laziness or poor choices, but of a system that had stopped working for the people who made it function. The elderly man spoke last. "I've lived in this city for 72 years. I drove a bus for 40 of them. Now I'm being pushed out because the neighborhood I helped build is too expensive for me to die in." His voice cracked. "This housing project, it's not about politics to me. It's about whether this city still has room for the people who built it." The chamber was utterly silent when he finished. Morrison looked at Vanessa. "Miss Ashford, you wanted to address leadership concerns?" Vanessa stood, visibly recalibrating her strategy. The emotional impact of the families had clearly thrown her prepared remarks off balance. "Yes, while these stories are certainly moving, they don't address the fundamental question of whether the Westbrook Foundation, under its current leadership, is a reliable steward of public funds." She pulled out a folder. "I have documentation here of Daniel Westbrook's history of impulsive decision-making, including the previous scandal involving professional conflicts of interest. His recent behavior, publicly pursuing a romantic relationship with a photographer, while this critical vote was pending, demonstrates a pattern of prioritizing personal desires over professional responsibility." Daniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. "Furthermore," Vanessa continued, I've prepared an alternative proposal where I would assume primary leadership of the project, ensuring more stable, experienced management, while Daniel transitions to an advisory role. This would give the council confidence that, excuse me. Arthur Brennan stood, his hands trembling slightly but his voice strong. May I speak? Morrison looked surprised but nodded. You're registered for public comment. Go ahead. I'm Arthur Brennan. I run a small gallery in Dumbo, and I've known the Westbrook family for 30 years. He looked directly at Vanessa. I knew Daniel's father. He was a good man who cared deeply about social responsibility. But he was also someone who let fear of public opinion dictate every choice. He built a foundation that was respectable but cautious, powerful but afraid. Arthur turned to the council. I've watched Daniel spend 18 months on this housing project. Not for publicity, he turned down 3 magazine profiles. Not for tax benefits, the foundation would get those regardless. He did it because he saw a need and believed he could help address it. That's not impulsive. That's commitment. He gestured to Rebecca's photographs. And yes, he's in a relationship. He's human. He's allowed to be human. The question before you isn't whether Daniel Westbrook's personal life meets someone else's standards of propriety. The question is whether this housing project meets the city's need for affordable housing. Everything else is distraction. Arthur sat down, breathing hard. Morrison looked at her fellow council members, then at Vanessa. Any financial irregularities, structural problems, or legitimate concerns about feasibility? The concerns are about leadership and judgment. That's not what I asked. Is there any problem with the actual project? Vanessa hesitated. No, but then your objection is noted and dismissed. Morrison's tone was final. This council makes decisions based on policy merit, not gossip. Now, unless there are any other substantive concerns, we'll proceed to the vote. Councilman Robert Chen raised his hand. I have a question for Mr. Westbrook. Daniel stood. Yes, sir. This project commits the foundation to 20 years of partnership with the city. That's a long time. What happens if you get distracted in year 5, year 10? What's to stop you from walking away when the next personal drama arises? It was a fair question, and Daniel didn't deflect. Nothing, Councilman. You're right, I could get distracted, or lose interest, or decide this is too hard. That risk exists with any long-term partnership. He paused. But I'm not my father. I'm not building something respectable that I secretly resent. This project, helping these families, this is what I want to spend the next 20 years doing. Not because it's noble or because it looks good, but because it matters to me. He glanced at Rebecca. I've spent my whole life trying to be perfect according to other people's standards. It made me safe and miserable. I'm done with that. I'm choosing to build something real instead of something respectable. And yes, that means I'll make mistakes. But I'll show up for those mistakes. I'll fix them. I won't hide behind PR statements or let someone else clean up my messes. Daniel looked back at Chen. You're not betting on my perfection. You're betting on my commitment. And I'm asking you to trust that commitment is worth more than a flawless track record. Chen leaned back, considering. Then he nodded slowly. Morrison called for the vote. All in favor of approving the Westbrook Foundation Affordable Housing Initiative? 12 hands went up. Opposed? 2 hands. Both council members with known ties to luxury real estate developers. The motion passes, 12-2. The project is approved. The families erupted in cheers. Maria Gonzalez was crying, hugging her kids. The elderly man sat down heavily, relief written across his face. Rebecca looked at Daniel. He was staring at the council in shock, like he hadn't quite believed it would happen even when it was happening. Then he turned to her, and his expression transformed into pure joy. They didn't kiss. They didn't embrace dramatically. The room was full of people celebrating, council members gathering papers, Vanessa leaving with her lawyers in tight-lipped silence. But Daniel took Rebecca's hand and squeezed it, and she squeezed back, and the entire complicated mess of the last 4 months distilled into that simple contact. They'd done it, together. Outside the council chambers, reporters were waiting. The same gossip bloggers who'd written about scandal and drama now wanted a statement about the vote. Caroline appeared at Daniel's elbow. "I can handle this if you want." Daniel looked at Rebecca, a question in his eyes. She nodded. He turned to the reporters. "The Westbrook Foundation is grateful for the council's vote and excited to begin implementation. This project represents the best of public-private partnership, addressing real needs with real solutions. We'll have a full press conference next week with details about timeline and application process." "What about your relationship with the photographer?" someone shouted. "How do you respond to concerns about conflicts of interest?" Rebecca Hartley is a talented artist whose work helped tell the story of why this project matters. Beyond that, my personal life is personal. Daniel's tone was firm but not defensive. The foundation's work speaks for itself. Judge us on results, not gossip. He walked away, Rebecca beside him, leaving the reporters scrambling for better quotes. Maria Gonzalez caught up with them at the elevator. "Thank you, both of you. My daughter, she has a chance now. A real chance." Rebecca hugged her, feeling the weight of what they'd accomplished. Not perfect, not simple, but real. As they rode the elevator down, Caroline spoke quietly. "I owe you an apology, Rebecca. I thought you were a distraction. I was wrong. You were protecting him. I understand that. Protecting him by trying to make him smaller. That was the mistake." Caroline looked at Daniel. "You're right. Commitment matters more than perfection. I'll remember that." The elevator opened onto the lobby. Outside, through the glass doors, Rebecca could see the city complex, messy, full of people struggling and hoping and building lives in the margins. Daniel took her hand again. "Coffee? Or are you sick of me after 3 days straight of crisis management?" Rebecca laughed. "Coffee sounds perfect. And then you can tell me what you actually like to do when you're not saving the world." "Deal. Though I warn you, my hobbies are embarrassingly mundane." "Good. I've had enough drama to last a lifetime." They walked out into the afternoon sun, together, ready to figure out what came next. Not perfectly, but honestly, and for both of them, that was enough. 6 months later, Rebecca stood in the construction site that would become the first building of the Westbrook Affordable Housing Project, her camera around her neck, watching Daniel argue with a contractor about window placement. The original plans had larger windows on the south side, Daniel was saying, pointing at blueprints spread across a makeshift table. "These families deserve natural light, not the minimum required by code. Larger windows cost more." Then we find the money. "We're not building cheap housing. We're building affordable housing. There's a difference." The contractor sighed but nodded, making notes. Daniel had become infamous among the construction team for his refusal to cut corners. Every decision, from window size to insulation quality to the community garden space, was made with the actual residents in mind. Rebecca had been documenting the entire process. What had started as crisis management, photography had evolved into a long-term project, capturing the transformation from empty lot to community, from political vote to actual homes. She'd sold the series to the New York Times Magazine. The feature would run next month, timed with the first families moving in. "How's it looking?" Arthur appeared beside her, breathing hard from climbing 3 flights of temporary stairs. Her father visited the site every few weeks, ostensibly to check on the project, but really to spend time with her. "Like it might actually work," Rebecca said. "Of course it'll work. You two are too stubborn for it not to." Arthur smiled. "Your mother called me yesterday. She saw the gallery announcement." Rebecca's stomach tightened. "And?" She didn't say much. "But she didn't hang up angry either, so I'm calling it progress." He paused. "She's proud of you, Rebecca. She just doesn't know how to say it." The gallery announcement. Rebecca's first solo exhibition, opening in 3 weeks at Arthur's gallery. Not commercial work, not wedding photography. Her own artistic vision. The series would include the housing project documentation, alongside portraits she'd been shooting around the city. People in moments of quiet dignity, finding beauty in ordinary struggles. She'd titled the exhibition Inheritance, a meditation on what we receive from our parents, what we reject, and what we choose to carry forward. Arthur had cried when she told him the title. She might come to the opening, Arthur added carefully. I didn't pressure her, but I mentioned it would mean something to you if she did. It would, Rebecca admitted. Even if we don't agree on anything else, I want her to see that I'm not wasting my life, that I'm building something. You are. And not just the photography. Arthur nodded toward Daniel, who was now discussing accessible ramp specifications with the contractor. How are things with you two? Really? Rebecca considered the question. 6 months in, the relationship was still complicated. Daniel's schedule was insane. Her own work kept her traveling for shoots, and they still occasionally clashed over whether to make their relationship more public or keep it private. But it was also real. Messy and imperfect, and real. We're good, Rebecca said. Better than good. We're figuring it out. That's all anyone can do. Daniel finished with the contractor and walked over, kissing Rebecca's temple in greeting, an easy intimacy that had developed over months of late-night planning sessions and early morning coffee runs. Your father's trying to climb construction sites now? Daniel asked, amused. Someone has to supervise, Arthur said. Make sure you're not cutting corners. He literally just yelled at a contractor for trying to cut corners. Then my supervision is working. Arthur grinned. I'll leave you two alone. Rebecca, dinner Sunday? My place? I'll bring wine. After Arthur left, Daniel wrapped his arm around Rebecca's waist, both of them looking at the skeletal structure of the building. It's real, he said quietly. 6 months ago, this was just a vote. Now it's actual walls. 12 weeks until the first families move in. 11 weeks, 4 days. But who's counting? Daniel's smile faded slightly. I'm terrified, you know. What if we missed something? What if the apartments aren't good enough? What if… Then we fix it, Rebecca interrupted. You've got a 20-year commitment, remember? This isn't build it and walk away. It's build it and keep improving it. When did you get so wise? I've been hanging around this guy who keeps insisting that commitment matters more than perfection. It's starting to rub off. Daniel laughed, pulling her closer. Speaking of commitment, and feel free to tell me this is too soon or too weird, but I was thinking about next steps. For us. Rebecca's heart rate picked up. What kind of next steps? The kind where we stop pretending we're casually dating and admit this is serious. The kind where we talk about futures instead of just next week's schedule. He paused. I'm not proposing. Yet, I'm just saying, I want to build something with you. Not just this project. Something ours. Rebecca had spent so many years running from exactly this kind of conversation, the moment when casual became committed, when possibility narrowed to choice. With Jason, she'd felt trapped by that conversation. With Daniel, she felt ready. I want that too, she said. Though I'm keeping my apartment, I need a space that's just mine. I wouldn't want it any other way. I've seen your darkroom setup that's sacred space. And I'm not giving up travel assignments. My work takes me places sometimes. I know. I'm not asking you to shrink your life to fit mine. I'm asking to build a life big enough for both of us. Rebecca turned to face him fully. Then yes, let's build something, together. They kissed, surrounded by construction debris and building materials. And it felt exactly right, not a fairy tale ending, but a real beginning. 3 weeks later, exhibition opening night. The gallery was packed. Rebecca had expected a decent turnout. Arthur's space had a loyal following, and the Times preview had generated interest, but this was beyond anything she'd anticipated. The housing project photographs lined one wall, showing the progression from that first weekend of shooting to the current construction phase. Opposite them, her portrait series. A bodega owner at dawn, a subway musician during the morning rush, an elderly woman tending a community garden, teenagers playing basketball in a park at sunset. Each photograph captured Arthur's philosophy: dignity in the everyday, beauty in the struggle, truth over sentiment. Daniel arrived with Caroline, who'd become an unlikely ally over the past months. She'd even helped Rebecca navigate foundation politics when the board questioned Daniel's time commitment to the housing project. It's incredible, Caroline said. studying a photograph of Maria Gonzalez, helping her daughter with homework, the same scene Rebecca had captured 6 months ago. But now with the knowledge that they'd soon be moving into actual affordable housing. You've documented hope without making it cheap. That's the goal. Marcus Chen appeared with his wife, looking uncomfortable but present. Rebecca, your father invited us. I hope that's all right. It's more than all right. Thank you for coming. Her father had been working on reconciliation, slowly, carefully, respecting Rebecca's boundaries but refusing to give up entirely. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Marcus studied the photograph silently for several minutes. Finally, he said, "Your mother couldn't make it tonight. She wanted to, but..." He trailed off. "But it's complicated. I understand. She asked me to tell you something, though." Marcus looked at Rebecca directly. "She said the photographs are beautiful, and she said she's sorry she made you feel like beauty wasn't enough." Rebecca's throat tightened. Not a full reconciliation, not yet, but an opening. "Tell her thank you, and tell her I'm still figuring out what's enough for me." She said she understands that too. Marcus managed a small smile. "She's learning. We both are." Arthur joined them, beaming with pride that he wasn't even trying to hide. "Rebecca, there's someone here asking about purchasing the whole portrait series. And the Times editor wants to discuss a book deal. And oh, your former boss Jason is here. He looks uncomfortable. Want me to have him removed?" Rebecca laughed. "I'll handle Jason." She found him near the entrance, looking at the exhibition title card. "Inheritance," he read aloud. "Is that about your dad?" "Partly. Mostly it's about figuring out what to keep and what to let go." Rebecca kept her tone neutral. "Thanks for coming. The work is strong, Rebecca. Better than anything you were doing with weddings." Jason hesitated. "I was wrong, you know, when I said you weren't serious about your art. You were always serious. I just couldn't see it because it wasn't the kind of serious I understood." It was probably the closest to an apology Jason could manage. Rebecca decided to take it as one. "We wanted different things. That's okay." "Yeah." Jason looked at Daniel across the room. "He seems more your speed. Idealistic, complicated, willing to blow up his life for principles. Is that a compliment?" "Surprisingly, yes." Jason smiled ruefully. "Be happy, Rebecca. You deserve it." After he left, Rebecca circulated through the gallery, accepting congratulations and answering questions about the photographs. The Times editor did want to discuss a book, a longer-term documentation of the housing project from conception through the first year of residency. "It's a story worth telling," the editor said. "Not just the politics or the policy, but the human experience of it. You've got a unique perspective as both documentarian and insider." Rebecca promised to think about it, though she already knew her answer would be yes. As the evening wound down, she found herself back in front of the exhibition's centerpiece, a diptych she'd titled "Then and Now." On the left, Arthur's photograph from 1987, the woman in the demolished building, surrounded by destruction but looking forward with determination. On the right, Rebecca's photograph from last month, a different woman, standing in the framed-out doorway of her future apartment in the housing project, looking at the city skyline with that same expression of determined hope. 38 years between the photographs. Different women, different buildings, different contexts, but the same truth. People endure, adapt, hope, build. Daniel appeared beside her. "This one's my favorite." "Mine too. It's what I'm trying to say with the whole exhibition, that we inherit these patterns, these struggles, these moments of grace, and we get to choose what we do with them." "What are you choosing?" Rebecca thought about her father's lifetime of regret, about choosing responsibility over art, about her mother's lifetime of anxiety about security, about her own years of playing it safe, afraid to commit to anything that might fail. "I'm choosing to build something that scares me," she said. "Something that might not work out perfectly, but that matters anyway. Photography that means something. A relationship that's complicated but real. A life that's mine instead of someone else's expectation. That's a good choice. It's terrifying. The best choices usually are. They stood together in the quiet gallery, surrounded by images of struggle and dignity, destruction and hope, the past and the possible future. Arthur joined them, carrying 3 glasses of champagne. "A toast," he said, "to inheritance, what we keep, what we transform, and what we create new." They raised their glasses. To inheritance, Rebecca echoed. Outside the gallery windows, the city continued its endless evening transformation lights, coming on in a million windows. People moving through their complicated lives, building and destroying and rebuilding in the perpetual cycle of urban existence. Rebecca had spent years photographing this city, trying to capture its truth. Now she understood. The truth wasn't in any single image. It was in the accumulation of moments, the pattern of trying, the commitment to keep looking even when the view was difficult. She was her father's daughter, an artist seeking beauty in hard places. She was her mother's daughter, building security through careful work. But more than either inheritance, she was herself, choosing the complicated path, the honest work, the imperfect love. And that, finally, was enough. The end. No, not the end yet. You didn't like the video, and you haven't even subscribed. But you enjoyed the story, didn't you? Of course, I wrote it with every love I have to give, and I know you loved it. Now serve me my subscription. No, sorry, subscribe. I meant subscribe so you don't miss our next story. I'd hate that you miss it. For now, do well to explore our previous stories while I finish up the next one. I'll see you on that one. Bye.